Yes.
Your Honor, I would again move to admit Exhibits 393 and 394.
Again, what's the date? Somebody could just announce it.
But Jody, what day was it that you received them?
It was November 11th, 2006.
I'm sorry.
If I can look at it, the exhibit. No objection.
393 and 394 are admitted.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
And you said this came to you via phone message. Is this something that you had solicited from him?
Not directly. I didn't expect a photograph, but we were flirting.
You were what?
Flirting?
That is a picture of his erection that he sent you, is that right?
Yes.
And you say you were flirting. What do you mean by flirting?
I was in Anaheim, at the Anaheim Grove, and I was at a Super Saturday for that area. And I was listening to speakers, and we began to text, and we were just text messaging back and forth. It turned flirty, and then it turned sexual, and it went on for hours, actually. Just back and forth, just trying to be witty and top each other's last comments.
And in that regard, in order to top your last comment, he sent you this picture?
That actually culminated at the restaurant after we left the Grove. He wasn't there, he was in Mesa. I was with other people. So we were at the restaurant when my phone beeped. I hadn't received pictures on that phone before. So when I showed I had a message from him, and I opened it and I couldn't find it. And then I realized it was a file that I don't know if I had to open it or go into a different folder to see it, and then I realized what it was. And I shut my phone really quick. It was a flip phone.
And moving, just showing you for the record, 393. And then 394. It appears these are different photos. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, they're different.
So he sent you 2 photos that day?
Yes.
Okay.
Consecutively.
All right. Ms. Arias, when he did that, was he also requesting that you reciprocate with any photos?
Yes.
Did you reciprocate with photos?
No, not that day.
Why not?
I was at a restaurant, and I don't know how to really explain it without saying.
Did you want to reciprocate?
No, I didn't, but I knew he wanted to, so I was a little bit conflicted, but I said no.
How did he react to your refusal to send him a picture?
He felt it should be fair, kind of like that. Like, he didn't say that, but he had been requesting photos for a while at this point, and
What was he requesting photos of?
Naked pictures.
Of you?
Yes.
of particular body parts, or did he make any specific requests?
No, he didn't specify body parts that I remember.
Okay. Up to the point in time when you received these pictures of his erection, you had not sent him any pictures, is that right?
Yes.
After the point in time, and I don't want to get too far down the road in the story, but after the point in time that he sent you those pictures, did you then feel a level of guilt for not reciprocating?
Yes, I didn't want to disappoint him. I felt like I had disappointed him, and he seemed very disappointed. Anyway.
Okay. Now, I want to spend some time talking about, did you say your baptism took place on November 26th of 2006, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. We heard a little bit from Mr. Freeman about the process, but I want to hear about what you went through leading up to it, okay? Would I like to discuss that now?
Okay.
Do you remember a particular point in time, maybe a month, a year, that you decided you wanted to join the Mormon faith?
It was a series of experiences that brought me to make that decision ultimately.
Describe for us what you mean by series of experiences.
Well, the first week the missionaries came, they invited me to church that following Sunday. This time I'd actually slept, so I was able to pay attention to what was being said. And someone was giving a talk, and what that person said was very impactful and something that I had not heard other Christians embrace before, but it was something that I personally embraced. And I liked
what was that, if you recall?
Am I allowed to say what he said?
Well, just tell us the general subject matter of.
It was an acceptance and a tolerance of all faiths in the world, basically.
And you found that aspect of the Mormon faith to be in line with your own personal beliefs, right?
Yes.
Okay. Describe for us then, you were talking about these experiences, a series of experiences. What other experiences led you to believe, or led you to choose to be baptized into the Mormon faith?
Travis and I talked about the church a lot, and I asked him any questions I had. I asked the missionaries also, but I was able to ask Travis a few more questions on a personal level. And not necessarily a sexual level, but just things that I wasn't comfortable asking two 20-year-old guys. So the more that I discovered about the church, the more I realized that it did not conflict with my beliefs, and it was in alignment with a lot of the values that I had, and especially the family values and the emphasis they place on families and marriage and the importance thereof. And I didn't like the no coffee rule. I couldn't imagine giving up coffee at that point. I drank it every morning and sometimes in the evenings. But that was the only thing that bothered me. There was no alcohol, but I wasn't really a drinker anyway, so that didn't bother me. But just everything seemed to line up for me as far as my beliefs and the lifestyle that I was interested in leading.
Once you made this decision internally in terms of wanting to be baptized, how did you move from that point in time to November 26th when you were actually baptized? Was there a process you went through with the church. Could you just kind of explain that to us?
Yes, the missionaries finally asked me if I was ready to be baptized, and I told them yes. So they set up an interview with another young man, I think he was an elder, and he asked me a series of questions. It's like an interview that you have right before you're baptized to see if you're ready to be baptized.
And when did this interview, if you know the date, fine. If not, relative to when you were baptized, when did this interview take place?
It was sometime in November, but I don't remember the exact time. It was close to my baptism date.
Okay. As it relates, well, let me ask you this. What sort of subjects what sort of questions were you asked? What were the subject matter of the questions that you were asked during this pre-baptismal interview?
So long ago, I don't remember the exact questions, but they asked questions about your belief in Jesus Christ and the veracity of the Book of Mormon, and about your belief in Joseph Smith being a prophet of God, and if you have been obeying the word of wisdom, which is the coffee and tea, etc., and if you've been obeying the law of chastity, which to my understanding at that time was, I guess, different.
Let me ask you about that. You said you were asked if you are obeying the law of chastity, right? You were asked that during the interview?
Yes.
Is that, okay. And your understanding of the law of chastity was abstaining from penile vaginal intercourse. That's what your understanding was, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So when you were asked that question, based on your understanding, you believe that you were indeed in line with the vow of chastity. Is that accurate?
Yes. In a technical sense, I believed I was.
Okay. And that belief was based on the things that Mr. Alexander was telling you?
Yes.
So after this interview, what happened? Are you approved to be baptized? What is the process from that point on?
I wasn't approved right away because I told the person that Daryl still lived in the house, and so he said he'd have to check since he was an ex-boyfriend and he's the opposite sex, and that's discouraged in the church to live under the same roof as somebody of the opposite sex who's not family or not your spouse. So he checked, and then I interviewed, I think, with another, I think it was the branch president, just to check, and he wanted to make sure that we were in separate bedrooms and that wasn't going to be an ongoing living situation, and Daryl had plans to move in about another week and a half or 2 weeks back to Monterey. So we were going to postpone the baptism, but the branch president said that he feels that the baptism should go forward as scheduled instead of postponing it till after Daryl moved.
Okay. And it was scheduled for the 26th? Was that the original day it was scheduled for?
Yes.
Okay. So you get this approval, I guess. How many days beforehand do you get the approval versus the day you're actually baptized?
I would say roughly a week. I don't remember exactly. It was close to the date.
Okay. So you were aware of your impending baptism when Mr. Alexander came to visit you at your home?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe I was.
Okay. Who baptized you into the Mormon faith?
Travis baptized me.
How was that decision made that he was to be the person to baptize you?
Well, when I decided I was going to get baptized, there was a period in early November, I think, or maybe it was mid-November. Travis had been a little more distant again, so I was kind of questioning where we were going with things on that, I still wanted to get baptized. And when I asked the missionaries, well, when they had told me asked me if I was ready, and I told them yes, I asked if his name was Elder Jensen. I asked if he would do it, because he had, second to Travis, he had taught me so much about the church at that point. And he had said that it's better.
Objection, hearsay.
It's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
Rephrase the question.
Did he accept your invitation to baptize you?
He did. No, he didn't accept it. He didn't.
Objection, now we have a scope.
Sustained.
To your understanding, why not?
I don't recall exactly what he said, but he encouraged me to find somebody.
Objection, hearsay. She doesn't recall exactly what he said.
Overall, do you mean answer?
I remember the essence of it, and that was that he encouraged me to find somebody, not him or his partner, not one of the missionaries.
Apart from those individuals and Mr. Alexander, at this point in time, did you have a close relationship with any other members of the church that would have the ability to baptize you?
Not a close relationship. I had acquaintances, and nobody really in that area, except the small branch. I didn't hang out with them too much at that point, so not really.
Okay. So how did you then come to the point in time that you decided that you wanted Travis to baptize you?
He was the only other person I could think of. And he was the person that I was initially thinking of also. So I decided to go ahead and, well, he asked me first if I had decided whether or not I was going to be baptized. And I told him yes, and he said, that's great.
Objection, hearsay, it's the conversation.
Sustained.
Sorry.
Mr. Alexander was happy to learn that you were being baptized.
He was happy to learn that, yes.
Did you then invite him to baptize you?
Yes.
Do you recall when you made that invitation?
It would have been November. I don't remember the exact date.
Did this happen in person or did this happen over the telephone?
It was over the phone.
Okay. Where did your baptism take place?
In Palm Desert.
What was involved? Well, just describe for us your baptism. Is it just you and Mr. Alexander, or are there other people involved?
No, many people were invited. I think it's open to anyone attending, especially church members. Non-members are encouraged to attend also. Travis, I don't remember if he invited them or if I invited them, but the Hugheses came out. A few other people in the business that were church members came to my baptism.
Did you invite your family?
No, they lived 11, 12 hours away, so I didn't. I told them.
Objection, hearsay, was the question. She was asked whether she invited them.
Sustained.
You didn't invite them. Were you under the impression that they wouldn't have an interest in being there?
Well, I mean, if they could teleport there, they'd be there, but they certainly wouldn't make the effort to come out there for that event.
Prior to you being baptized, had your family expressed misgivings about you joining the church?
Yes.
We say your family. Are we talking about the immediate family, your parents, your grandparents, and your brothers and sisters?
Yes, aunts, parents, siblings, and friends.
So pretty much everyone in your, from what you're telling us, it sounds like pretty much everyone in your immediate circle discouraged you from joining the church.
Yes.
Okay. Did you invite Mr. Brewer to attend?
Yes.
Did he attend?
No.
So tell us what, you mentioned the ceremony. How did you feel that day knowing that you were going to be baptized before the ceremony?
I was a little nervous because I didn't know what the process entailed, but I was excited.
And how was tell us what occurred during your ceremony.
Well, we had chairs set up and a small podium in another room, not in the main chapel. But it's still at the church building. And people took their seats. There were some hymns. Well, we opened with a prayer. There were some hymns that we sang and a few talks that were given on a few different subjects. And I don't remember if another hymn was sang, but then I was led into the font. I went into the back, and then Travis was already in the font.
You said the font. What is the font?
The best I can describe it is a very big, like a giant bathtub, but filled with water about waist level when you're standing up.
Okay. And you said Mr. Alexander was back there. What takes place when you go towards the font?
Well, before entering the font, I changed into an all-white, kind of like a jumpsuit. And then there's some steps that lead into the font.
And what happens when you go into the font?
It was a lot like Dan described. You walk up and Travis held his hand up and said some kind of invocation or prayer or blessing. I don't know what it's called. He made a declaration, so to speak, and then I was dipped into the water and came back up.
And how did it feel for you to be baptized? Were you elated? Did you feel very spiritual? Can you describe that feeling?
It was a very peaceful feeling.
Now, after the official baptism, the ritual you just talked about, after that is over, are there more services? Is there a reception? For those of us who aren't familiar, could you please just kind of take us through that experience?
Are you talking about what happens after the baptism?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I went back into the designated area, I guess, for the ladies, where they can change. I was changing into my clothes. Sky Hughes came into that area to check on me. After that, we went back into the main area where everybody was still hanging out and just talking about whatever, just plans for the week, things like that. I think we might have closed with a prayer, but I don't remember. I just remember everything sort of dispersing shortly after I was out of the water.
Okay. And how did you get back home that day?
That day, I drove.
Okay. Did you drive by yourself?
No, Travis came with me.
Okay. Tell us what happened when you got back to the house.
We got back to the house. His car was parked at my house, so we took my car to church. So we got back to the house, went inside, and we hugged. Words were exchanged.
What happened after you hugged and words were exchanged?
We began to kiss, and things got intimate again.
Was that place of intimacy a place you were thinking about going on this spiritual day?
Not how it ultimately happened, no.
What do you mean, how it ultimately happened? Describe for us what happened after you and Mr. Alexander started kissing that day.
Well, we were in my bedroom. We were not on the bed, but we were standing next to it. And we were kissing. And I was in my church clothes. He was in his church clothes. The kissing got more passionate, more intense, and then he spun me around. And he bent me over the bed, and he was just on top of me. I didn't think anything was, but he was just going to keep kissing me.
What happened when he bent you over the bed? Were you face down on the bed or face up?
I was face down. My head was turned to the side.
And what happened?
His hands were wandering, and he lifted up my skirt, and he pulled down my underwear, and he was pressing against me,
What do you mean pressing against you?
his whole body.
Did he have an erection?
I could feel an erection.
And what happened next?
He unzipped his pants, and I guess he pulled him down. I didn't see, but he began to have anal sex with me, and
You said that he had anal sex with you. Based on what you said before, this wasn't something that you were expecting to happen.
no, not that night.
Is this something that you wanted to happen?
Well, I can't say I wanted to, but I didn't stop him.
When he entered you, you said you didn't stop him. Did you say anything? Did you tell him no?
No,
Was it pleasurable for you physically?
at that time it was painful, somewhat.
Given that it was painful, why didn't you tell him no?
Eventually I did. I probably would have just let him continue, but it became too painful.
Why do you say you probably just would have let him continue?
Because I knew that is what he had been wanting for a while, and I trusted him. I had a lot of trust, and I just went with what he was, with his agenda, I guess I could say.
This agenda you describe him having and this pain you were experiencing, did this go on for several minutes before you told him no?
I don't think it went on too long, not several minutes, maybe a few.
And from what you're telling us, it sounds like the only reason that you told him no or told him to stop was the pain, not your lack of interest in this activity. Is that right?
That's pretty accurate. I mean, I wasn't looking forward to it, but definitely the pain, I had to have him stop. Otherwise, I probably would have continued.
Otherwise what?
I probably would have continued if it weren't for that.
Okay. After he stopped, was that the end of the intimacy that day?
He finished by ejaculating on my back or somewhere, like on me. And then we were finished. And then shortly, I think we parted ways. We kissed and embraced, and he left.
After this encounter on this spiritual day, how did you feel about yourself?
After he left, shortly after he left, I didn't feel very good. I kind of felt like a used piece of toilet paper. I don't know, I didn't continue feeling that way, just shortly thereafter. For a little while I did.
Then in late November of 2006, after your baptism, does Mr. Alexander stay in Palm Desert, to your knowledge, or does he go back?
He drove back to Mesa, to my knowledge.
Okay. Do you need a moment?
No. Thank you.
After this incident on the 26th, when was the next time you spoke with Mr. Alexander?
I can't remember if it was that night or the next night, but it was shortly after that.
Did the subject of the encounter, the anal sex you just described, did that come up in your conversations?
He wrote me a letter about it. We didn't discuss it directly on the phone. We had discussed things of that nature in the past.
Did you ever voice your displeasure with the incident to him?
Only when I said,
Objection, hearsay, what she said.
She's the declarant, Judge.
Overruled, you may answer.
I kind of just said through clenched teeth, stop, 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 and he stopped. So I think he got the impression that it was not pleasurable at that point, but I never said anything about it after that of a negative nature.
So you never advised him that you felt like, as I think you said, a used piece of toilet paper. You never advised him that?
I wouldn't have told him that.
You would not have? Is that what you
No.
said? Why not?
Because I don't think that would have made him feel very good.
How about how you felt?
I was dealing with that, you know.
Okay. So after this incident, you say you talked to him. Are you talking to him then again on a near daily basis or near nightly basis?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Sarah.
Yes.
And you mentioned these phone calls getting progressively later and later. What time are we talking about a majority of these phone calls taking place?
He almost stopped calling me completely before 11 p.m. Usually it was closer to midnight, and sometimes it was as late as 3 a.m. He would call and we would talk.
These talks now, you mentioned in the past that they were of a spiritual nature, personal nature, and a sexual nature. Did that pattern persist in throughout November? Subsequent, I
Yes.
should say, November, December, subsequent to this incident.
Yeah, new subject matters were incorporated regarding our futures, things like that. But for the most part, that same kind of thing continued.
Well, let me ask you this. You say regarding the future. Did that future, was that related to the relationship prospects between yourself and Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Prior to, let's even make it specific to November 26th, were you and Travis boyfriend and girlfriend?
No, we were not.
When did you, for the sake of discussion now, when did you become boyfriend and girlfriend?
We became boyfriend, girlfriend. Well, we didn't term it that, but we became, not initially, we became exclusive, to my understanding, on February 2nd, 2007.
Okay. So it was a good 2-3 months later after this incident before you became exclusive or boyfriend and girlfriend? What some
Yes.
people- okay. Now, as it relates to these times, and I want to back up a little bit, when you were in public with Mr. Alexander prior to November 26th, did you act publicly as if you were boyfriend and girlfriend?
No, not in public.
What about during the trip to Ehrenberg? I mean, were you holding hands? Did you have your arm around each other? Was that different than most of the other times?
Inside the motel room, definitely. Inside the truck stop, the restaurant adjoins this mini mart, and he grabbed my butt there. There were some men standing by, and he did that right in front of them. And other than that, I think he wasn't too affectionate at Sizzler. I don't really remember, but he was very affectionate inside the motel room while we were being physical.
Okay. As you were having this, what was the beginnings of a sexual relationship, you've had these few sexual encounters. Were you under the impression that this was something that was supposed to be kept a secret?
I got that impression from different things, different hints and clues and things that his friend said.
Okay. Would that be, without directly saying what they're saying, would that be directly related to the vow of chastity and Travis's, the belief that Travis was adhering to it?
I don't know. I believed that we were adhering to it.
Okay.
It was more, sorry.
So even at the point in time when you had this unwanted anal sex, you believed you were complying with the vow of chastity?
By definition. It didn't really feel that way, but by definition, I did believe that.
In that regard, then, there must have been some reason why you felt like you couldn't tell anybody about these encounters, right?
Yes.
And what was that reason?
I don't typically talk about my sex life with people. That was pretty much the simple reason.
Did Mr. Alexander know that?
He knew I was discreet. I didn't reveal anything about Daryl.
Okay. Did he ask?
In the beginning, he joked about it, but he didn't press for too many details. I didn't give him any.
Okay. So after November 26th, and you're still living in Palm Desert, right?
Yes.
And Travis is still living in Mesa, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it sounds to me like in this point in time in the story, you hadn't come to visit him in Mesa. Is that correct?
Yes, I'd never been to Arizona.
Okay. Let's talk about then the next time you saw Mr. Alexander. When was that?
It was about, it was the Friday following the Sunday I was baptized.
And where did that meeting take place?
At his house.
His house in Mesa?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the plan? Were you coming out there for a weekend? Were you coming out there for a long time? What was the idea, the purpose of the visit?
There was another regional event happening, a Super Saturday in Phoenix, with a special guest speaker that was flying in. It was really big in the company. So a ton of people were carpooling, caravanning out from California, and I was part of the caravan. And we all, I think there were 3 or 4 vehicles. They were coming from Paris, California, Moreno Valley, Murrieta, other Southern California towns, and Palm Desert is on the way, so that was the last stop where I met them at Carl's Jr., and we all got on the road and drove together for the most of the drive.
Okay. When you, in this event in Mesa, I'm assuming this wasn't at Mr. Alexander's home, is that right?
The event?
Yeah.
No, it was in Phoenix.
Okay. So you caravan, you carpool with these people from California. You get to this meeting in Phoenix. Is this where you see Mr. Alexander at this meeting?
No, we went to his house first on Friday night. The event was Saturday morning.
Okay. You say we. Who was we?
Me and, do you want me to name names?
Well, no, that's okay. Just some of the people you were carpooling with?
Yes, his friends and people that were in the company.
What was the purpose of going to Mr. Alexander's house? Were you staying there? Could you just describe that for us?
Yes, a bunch of people from out of state were coming to his house, and we were all going to crash there.
Okay. And what were the sleeping arrangements to be?
Well, the sleeping arrangements after we got there, we were determining those things.
Well, let me ask you this. Prior to, obviously, Mr. Alexander, you knew you were coming out to this event, right?
Yes.
Did he give any indications to you that while you were in Mesa, and how many days was this going to be?
It's Saturday, and we would leave Sunday.
Okay.
Well, we arrived Friday night.
Okay. So while you were in Mesa for this 3-day weekend, I guess, did he give you any indication that he wanted to engage or have some sort of sexual interaction with you?
No, it was just the opposite.
Okay. Told you he didn't?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us about that weekend then. Was yourself and others, did you wind up having a sexual encounter with Mr. Alexander that weekend?
No, he joked about oral sex, giving him, but he was concerned about his ex-girlfriend there, and he didn't want us to be affectionate in front of her.
And this ex-girlfriend, we heard from a girl by the name of Lisa, then by the name of Lisa Andrews. Is that the girlfriend we're talking about?
No, Lisa Andrews came afterward. This was a girlfriend prior to
Okay,
Lisa.
all right. And what was her name?
Deanna.
So he expressed to you concern that Deanna would be jealous.
He didn't say jealous.
Did he express misgivings about how the two of you were to act in front of Deanna?
Yes, he felt he needed to warn me.
Warn you that what?
We're going to take the noon recess at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, please be back in the jury room at 1:25. Please remember the admonition. Have a nice lunch. You are excused. Please be seated. The record will show the jury has left the courtroom. Yes, Ms. Arias, you may step down. Let's address the last objection. Mr. Martinez.
She was going to talk about what Mr. Alexander told her, and that's hearsay.
You know, hearsay has a much more complex definition than just the fact that something comes out of someone else's mouth. That does not hearsay make. It has to be an assertion, intended as an assertion by the declarant, that is offered for the truth of the matter asserted. This goes to Ms. Arias' state of mind as it relates to how she was to act in front of this girlfriend, Deanna. It goes to the effect of the listener. I don't even think it's hearsay because it's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. As to the reasons why that Mr. Alexander was concerned about his conduct in front of Ms. Reed, that we're not going to the truth of the matter, that the effect of how this affected Ms. Arias' conduct and the behavior that weekend.
But as we discussed at the bench yesterday, if you can redirect her by rephrasing the question, that is preferable. We'll limit the number of bench conferences we need to have. So just rephrase the question.
Sure.
When the jury returns. All right. Mr. Nermy, you wanted to make a record? Did you want to do that now?
Well, yes, Your Honor, that's fine, but I believe I'd like to have the Sheriff's
Privately.
Office begin by addressing what they're requesting, and then so I can make my objection to it.
All right. Mr. Dutcher, on behalf of the Sheriff.
Good morning, Judge. Scott Dutcher on behalf of Sheriff Arpaio. Come to the Sheriff's attention, there have been some conferences in chambers in a non-secure area of the courthouse with Ms. Arias present, and that's not something the Sheriff permits. After we all discussed this this morning before court began, I did explore some other options with the Sheriff's Office, and I know the defense has some concerns, and this may be an option if everyone wants this. If there are short conferences as lieu of having everyone clear the courtroom, right over here is a secure area, and there aren't chairs. I don't know if we can get some chairs, but if it's a short conference, we can all enter this area of the courthouse, which is a secure area of the jail, and everyone can, I guess, say whatever they need to say. I don't know if that's an option that everyone wants, but that or the courtroom are the only options available, Judge. It is a security issue to have inmates in unsecure areas of the jail, and that's not something the Sheriff allows for any inmate, including Ms. Arias.
All right. And you wanted to make a record on that, Mr. Nermy?
Judge, I just want to recite, at least, obviously, we know the Sixth Amendment guarantees my client's right to be present at all vital stages of these proceedings, and any denial of that would be a denial of due process and reason for mistrial. In this regard, obviously, based on whatever the reasons were when we were asking to do this, whatever party was, both parties have asked, and the court has understood that under those circumstances, with not going into what they are, that those were important, there were reasons for it. That is why some of those records have been sealed. So Judge, I believe that, at least for the record, and our assertion is that regardless, and I'm not trying to get in a dispute with the sheriff's office, but Ms. Arias is entitled to do that. I don't know about the viability from a logistics standpoint of what the sheriff's office is suggesting, but I just want to make it clear for the record that we're asserting that she has an absolute right to be present, and if that needs to be facilitated in some way, either through clearing the courtroom or alternative means, and that is the basis of our assertion, and we will not waver on that point. If it gets more contentious in that regard, I would be asking for motions from the sheriff's office because this is such an important right.
All right, the court will make the best determination it can in any given circumstance, including clearing the courtroom if necessary to accommodate a defense request or a confidential meeting. All right, anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, for lunch.